to turn on. Okay, function. There we go. All right, so first question that you had asked was, if I remember correctly, character stereotypes and if they are good or bad or
Like the
something
most
specific.
basic ones like you definitely put a character into.
Um, I would actually say the biggest issue is you don't want to stereotype your characters. So I'm gonna flip flop the question and say how to build a good character because stereotypes are bad. Um, I understand the way you're asking, but I'll segue into that. So stereotypes aren't necessarily very good for your character. The reason why is because it often leads to very, very flat characters, and as a result, they just become that one stereotype. They don't have a real personality. Oftentimes, this is how you get the teen dramas of you have the jerk cheerleader, and that's her only personality trait.
And she's blonde.
And it's like, and she's always blonde, and she's always gone like this.
I was like, oh wait, yeah.
Like that's a stereotype, and that's the why it's a problem because she has no other life. She has no real character. No, exactly.
Oh, I know.
Yes, so it's like.
What about that theater kid? Like,
yes, the theater kid that's all like, hi, and all possessed. But see, you can have traits of certain stereotypes, but that doesn't make you just that, right? You have so much more to you than just that stereotype. And so I will say, can you build off of stereotypes? Yes, but you should not say that stereotype is the only thing they are. I would say don't start with the stereotype. I would say start with their backstory and then decide what stereotype they best fit into. Work in reverse. So it's not that stereotypes are bad, it's that it's bad to start with a stereotype. You want to start with a background, start with the roots, start with real character development, and then grow into okay, this is the persona they put on, this is the stereotype they prefer, this is how they want to present themselves to the world. Because we all do that ultimately. We ultimately accidentally fit into a stereotype purely because we like that stereotype. We're like, this, I like how people see me when I'm like this. Heck, that's even why cheerleaders do that, is because they like that stereotype. They like being the popular pretty one. That's it. That's something they enjoy. But why do they enjoy that? What gives them fulfillment to be seen that way? What makes them feel like that is their role in society? Um, so personally, I would say start with their background and then move into a stereotype. Now, good stereotypes to do for your characters. Pretty much any stereotype that exists. With one caveat. Don't make race, sexuality, or religion a stereotype. That's just offensive. If you want to do or neurodivergence, it's important to, if you're going to make a stereotype, it's got to be something else, something social construct y. For example, a social construct that we often have is the emo kid, right? That you can absolutely have an emo stereotype character, but the reason why is because it's not a religion, it's not a race, it's not a neurodivergence type, it has nothing to do with their sexuality. It's just a part of how they represent themselves and the kinds of things that they like getting categorized by the world. So it's important to have that. The other four things that I just mentioned are not stereotypes, they are separate. They're a separate thing. They can have a sub stereotype where they can be, for example, you can have the theater kid who's absolutely like quirky and popular, but you can also have the gay theater kid. Like they can fit into two stereotypical boxes, but it's important that the other four are a sub to the other one. This is a part of who they are, not ultimately their whole being. Yes, question.
So I remember this just like gives me an idea for like something that I feel like would be if people keep saying, what are the stereotypes of my characters?
Uh-huh.
Then like then I would if they push too hard, then I'm
Yeah.
just gonna show them hard level stereotype, and then
Mm-hmm.
like I feel like I should do like the new students memes, like the hard level stereotypes versus my original
Yes,
characters.
this is what they would fit into more than likely. Exactly. Because oftentimes we do fit into a category. It's just that that's not who we are. Yes, question.
This is to add on to that, if that's okay.
Yeah, shoot.
With stereotypes, one that I really like, well, I don't like the stereotype, but I like what this author did with this stereotype
Right.
is the dumb blonde. In Percy Jackson, they essentially
Yes.
did the opposite.
Yes.
It's blonde. Also, the daughter of Athena.
Exactly.
The most
Sometimes also flipping the stereotype can be awesome. I'm currently watching this series of skits by this guy where the whole point is that the jock is actually just pretending to be dumb because he thinks it's how people like him, and he's actually really smart. And I love it so much. I'm like, dude, this is awesome because it's a different thing. They're taking the stereotype and flipping it on its head, but it's also explaining why he prefers to be seen as dumb. And it has a lot of character depth. Yes, question, Solara, or comment.
Comment. Yeah.
Mhm.
This thing of flipping the stereotype reminded
Yeah.
me of some reel that my brother showed me that
Mhm.
flipping like common story. Like,
Yes,
like
tropes, cliches, different things like that.
And
Yes.
so, and we thought like I don't know, the chosen one is the one who doesn't have powers.
No, exactly. Or like,
Or
for example, instead of the damsel in distress, it's the guy in distress.
Yeah, or love is the enemy.
Yes. Yes, flipping things on their head can be very not only original but very fascinating to see how the other way would work, how it would function. But yeah, so I would say with stereotypes, if people are like asking, hey, what stereotype is my character? I would say go with the classic high school stereotypes. The reason why is because that's what people most relate to. If obviously they're a fantasy character and don't exist in modern world, then you can go with base stereotype descriptions. For example, golden retriever person. They're generally the person who's like happy-go-lucky, very lovable, very much loves everyone, sunshine kind of character. Then you also have the black cat stereotype where they're kind of the emo one. They look on the dark side a little bit more often. They have they have a lot more struggles, and so a little bit more of the struggle bus. Then you also have some of the other stereotypes of like the goofy one, like Ron, for instance, from Harry Potter, where he's like 90% of the time you don't know how he's passing the classes, how he graduated, mystery to everyone. No offense to Ron, but also he's just too busy goofing off to actually focus ever. Um, and then you also have, the smart one stereotype, the genius. But again, Hermione's so much more than just the genius. And why does she want to be seen that way? Because she sees herself as inferior because she's a mudblood. Honestly, if she had been born a pureblood, she might not have given a darn about school. She might have not cared. And so that ultimately does develop who you are, where you came from, how you were raised. All these different things are part of who you are. They are not a stereotype. They are what makes you fall into a stereotype, though, oftentimes. All right. So we're gonna go around the room now. So since we started with Abby, we're gonna go around the room this direction. So Rhea, you said you had one question, so I figured I'd go this way since you said you only had one question.
I actually had 45.
45?
My question was how to do detail without info dumping because that doesn't have what I struggle with a lot. It's like I'm able to do dialogue real well, but when I do stuff, it's like the grass is green. It's either planned
So
or I overexplain.
are we talking about scene detail, character detail, or magic information?
Like scene detail and character detail.
Okay, that's why I asked, because I was like, I'm gonna give different advice depending on those three.
Essentially, like what you see.
Yes. Okay, so first of all, I would say with scene detail, how the characters interact with the environment is the easiest way to do it. For example, how they interact with themselves and their environment. If you haven't noticed, I am very fidgety. Um, wow, shocker. And so as a result, I touch my hair a lot. I scratch my nose a lot. I'll adjust my glasses, different things like that. And then oftentimes people will do things like that when they're frustrated or when they talk a lot or they'll talk with their hands. And so that makes it easy to describe them as a character because you can just throw it right in there where they say like she fidgeted with her blonde braid. Done. You've described their hair color. Congratulations. Or for their example, their eyes, you can say like her hazel eyes locked with his blue ones. The end. You now have the character's description with their eyes. If their skin tone is important at all, which generally I would say it is, because that can sometimes change not only how society interacts, sadly, with them, but it can also change often their culture and different things like that. So it's important to give this detail. You can often give that detail by like having them like scratch their arm, or you can give that detail by having like the sun pour down on their skin or their face or different things like that. Comment or question?
This is actually a comment. So this is something that I like to do, that I would like to do for my books, because I want people to be able to visually see them a lot better. So like when you meet a character, it shows a colored picture of what they look like. So like the main character, she very much.
For sure. And if you do have pictures in your book, that works really well. Unfortunately, 99% of books do not. But
like, I also have like if anybody has like an outfit change, then I'll have like a picture or just like basic it, or like if it's just like a basic outfit.
if you are able to put pictures in your book, absolutely. If you are the average person who cannot put pictures in their book because it's considered abnormal, then unfortunately it's a lot harder. Just because it's unfortunately putting pictures in the book, though fantastic, is a lot more for junior fiction and graphic novels, which is sad that more books haven't picked that up. I would love to see more pictures in like adult novels.
Like the Harry Potter
Yes,
version,
exactly. Where they had the heading where they had cool pictures. It's awesome. Yes, yes. Anyway, yes. Question or comment?
Is what she said reminded me that I like to draw my characters.
Mhm.
See how they look like.
Yeah, sometimes that can help you envision them in your own head, for sure. And then another thing as far as characters go, if you need help describing them, especially if you don't want to be offensive in any way, you can absolutely have a character make a comment dialogue wise if that is important. So, for example, you could have them say something sassy, like if they were both fighting over a guy or something, and the one girl's like, he only likes you because he likes redheads, or something like that. Done. Described. Like, you've done it through dialogue. So, dialogue can be a helpful tool, but if you're just trying to do it in normal prose, then yeah, in general, how they interact with the environment and their own body is going to be the best cues for being able to slide in the description. As far as land goes, yes, comment or question before we move on to describing scenes. Yes, shoot.
I would like to say that also, like you don't want to introduce a specific thing too late because
Yes.
it's like, what, they have blonde hair? I thought they had brown the whole book.
That's a good point. I should have mentioned that. I think I mentioned it in the past, so I forgot to mention it now. So yes, to recap, mention it the first time you meet someone. If you meet a new character, don't wait 5 pages before you say they have red hair. No. Make sure that you right off the bat, you're like, and she fiddled with her red hair. Whatever you need to do to get it done ASAP.
Or like they're describing the character that they meet, like they see them and like.
Yeah, they're watching them walk down the hallway maybe, and they're kind of like, huh, observing them. Yes. Yes, exactly. I wish I was as pretty as her, or wow, she looks really good in that tight little skirt, or something like that. And they're like, I wish I could wear clothes like that. I can't. I feel too ugly. So it tells a lot about your character, but then it also tells like how the other character dresses and what they look like, and kind of are able to fill in some of those blanks. Yeah.
Sometimes I think for me it's kind of helpful when throughout the series the author kind of describes the character again, just little description here and there. Because sometimes I forget what the character looks like.
Yes. That if it's been, I was gonna say, if it's been like a couple 100 pages, you should probably slip that in again, just in case they forgot. That is a good point. If you're doing a short story, though, I would say one description's plenty. The reason why I clarify that is because oftentimes people are like, oh, I have to describe them frequently then. If it's less than 100 pages, you don't have to describe them again. You need it about every 100 pages, give or take a little sooner, a little later, depending on if it's necessary.
Always do it whenever you're in a sequel because somebody might.
Yes,
grab.
sequels. They grab
accidentally
it out of
grab a
order and then
sequel.
they're like, I have no idea what these characters look like. Yes, for sure. That is really frustrating when you grab a sequel and then you're like, I don't know what they look like. Excellent point, Abby.
I can't find. I'm trying to draw like this star shape. I'm trying to design a cover art.
Yeah.
For the book that I'm designing, but I can't draw a star. I can't draw a star like I usually because I know how to draw it with a pencil. I can't.
Right.
Draw it with my
Digital's so much harder.
Can somebody help me with this?
But anyway, move. Still like not that talented. Different genre of art. All right. So with it, we all have your different talents. You can be great at oil paintings and suck at pencil. We all have our different talents. So different flavors of talent. All right. So with that being said, next thing is describing the scene. Once again, interacting with the scene is the biggest thing that makes it so you can describe it. Or, secondarily, if they are in awe of something. The reason it made it so easy to describe scenes in Harry Potter was because he'd never been to the Wizarding World. So he was constantly like, whoa. And as a result, it made it so that when she described something, it felt natural because he was just staring. And as a result, you're like, yeah, I can understand why you described that because he's busy staring at it. Whereas if they're more used to it, like for example, this room, I come into this room all the time, so I'm a little more used to it. I wouldn't be staring at the table intently, that's weird. But if it has something wrong with it, they might do that. Like, for example, if there was a big stain I didn't recognize on one of the tables, I'd be like, okay. And that's another thing. Keep in mind what your characters would notice first. What would be most eye-catching to them? That's going to be very helpful in describing things because especially if you're doing it from their point of view. The other thing is obviously interaction. So, for example, if it's windy, you can say like the wind blustered her hair back, or you can say like the sun was beating down on them so hard she had to, shield her eyes. Or if you're indoors, you can do things like interacting. Like, for example, I just grabbed the orange chairs earlier. That'd be a perfect way to describe the chairs are bright freaking neon orange. That's the most orange I've ever seen. But anyway, point is that you'd notice that if I grabbed chairs. And so as a character, if I was the main character, you could be like, I grabbed the two chairs and set them in front to make sure that I could be seen. That their bright orangeness made it difficult to stare at my computer. Like it makes it so you can describe it in a way that's interesting because of action. So the biggest thing is, what if they're not moving? What if they're literally just staring off into space? Well, that's okay. You don't need to see what's around them unless it's super important to the plot. For example, if there's like some sort of danger they might be in or something like that, then okay, describe that. But if there's no danger and they're just staring at the sky talking with their friend, you're good. You don't have to describe where they are perfectly. Just describe what's most important to your character and what things they're interacting with. If it's super important the thing gets interacted with, you can also find a way to move your character into action to want to do those things. Exactly. Trip over something, or alternatively, if so orange. But anyway, so it's one of those things where interacting with things is how we see the world. And so as a result, it helps you if you're able to have the character move through the world. And especially even if they know about the world and are aware of it, it's important to not have white room syndrome. For example, if you have someone wake up in a room, okay, tell us what the room looks like. Tell us what things are in the room. If it is a white room, cool. Is it a padded white room? In which case we have a problem. Is it a just white room and then it's got like blisteringly white sterile lights? Okay, you might be getting experimented on. Congratulations. Or woke up from a coma. Like, yeah, you have so many different options. Or, for example, if you wake up in a hospital bed, that's kind of important to note. Or if you wake up in a room and there is a chest of drawers nearby, that's important to note, especially if they're going to go through it. Sorry, I couldn't help laughing. One of the years that I went to Teen Author Boot Camp, and I actually laughed so hard because Brandon Mole was like, I got to help grade all the first chapter entries. And he's like, by the way, not making fun of you, but also this is not a good thing for a character to do. I don't know about you, but if you're kidnapped, you don't just go straight to the chest of drawers and go, ooh, clothes, and then try them on. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of a mistake. So he was like, exactly. He's like, unless your character's really that dumb, in which case you should specify they are really dumb. Because, like, that's not something you would normally do. And so I think they were just trying to describe that there was, in fact, a chest of drawers in the room and that it was full of clothes. But that doesn't mean that's what they would interact with first. How you could describe that in a way that would make more sense would have them being like ripping open the chest of drawers and being like, where's the key? Where's the key? How do I get out here? Like, that makes more sense. That way you can describe where we are without having them like not making sense, doing things that are nonsensical. So the things that they interact with need to still have some semblance of logic to them. Was that helpful at all?
Yes, that was very helpful.
Yay! All right, and in general, I would say when in doubt, don't describe. If you have said the forest, we are good. Unless it's direly important that we know exactly which forest this is, you're good. Set, done, ready to go. You only need as much detail as the character needs to know. really. That's how you know if you're info dumping or
I
not.
do have a follow-up question.
Follow-up question, and then we will move to Sable. Yes.
With like the Harry Potter thing, it's like, oh,
Mhm.
he doesn't know stuff.
Yeah.
Well, like any character that knows a lot of stuff, but there's like a different character that doesn't know about stuff, and the main character.
In that case, then, explaining it is perfectly fine. The main thing is just make sure that you have the character who knows explaining it to the character who doesn't know. That's actually a great way of doing things with magic lore, because that's why Harry Potter works so well. We don't know how the Harry Potter wizarding world works. Harry Potter also doesn't. Yay! Hermione, on the other hand, gets to go, ooh, pick me! I get to describe all the things. And so it makes it work out because she wants to describe everything and be a know-it-all, and he wants to know all the things. Win-win. We as the reader are like, awesome, I get to learn things by having Hermione gab at me. So with that being said, yes, absolutely that works. I think the biggest problem is just make sure you don't accidentally jump into the other character's head just in order to describe things. Stick to the dialogue. Yes, Sable's question.
Yeah. So, like I was gonna ask about like royalty fees.
Ooh, excellent question. Yes. With royalty fees, are you talking about traditional publishing, independent publishing, hybrid publishing, or all three?
All three.
All three. I will run off the details.
Wait,
Yes.
I just thought of something.
Mhm.
Like, I just realized in my book, there are many different spell circles that are designed for curses, other spells, many enchantments, and it has to be done in a certain way.
That very much makes it easier to describe your lore. If you have people who don't know how certain things work, you could definitely absolutely have them be re-described to them and be like, this is precisely how you have to make it function. That definitely helps, having a very precise magic system. All right, moving back to royalty fees. So, multiple things. Let's go with traditional first, because traditional is the most complicated. So, if you, for a definition for those who don't know already, traditional publishing is when you have your book published through a publishing house, whether you've given it to an agent and then a publishing house, or whether you give it to a publishing house and then just go from there. I will say, in this day and age, agent is better. It will get you published faster, but one red flag, you don't pay them. The publishing house pays them. So if an agent is asking for money, run the other way. It's a scam. But let's say you got your book deal, you got your agent signed on, you got your publisher signed on. Great, all good. First thing, your agent gets paid by the publishing company. You don't have to pay them. So as a result, the publisher and the agent will work out a fee within your contract that they will just work out themselves. They'll figure that out, so you don't have to worry about that. Secondarily, they will pay you what's called an advance. This advance is basically given to you to say, hey, you wrote a great book. You spent a lot of time writing this book. We have paid you for the time you spent writing this book. Good job. The other thing that they might give you an advance for is if they ask for a book 2. If your book does phenomenally well, they might give you an advance and say, now, as long as you fulfill your duties by October or whatever, write the book. You get to keep money. Now, the only problem with advance is if you do not come forward with the book. So, for example, if you promise them a book 2 by October, and then your cousin gets tragically hospitalized, and you've been busy trying to help them forever, you gotta tell them, because if you don't tell them, they're gonna cut you off. Not good. With royalty fees following that, though, first, you have to make back your advance. This is why a lot of people argue that libraries aren't good. Now I'm going to explain why libraries are good. With making back your advance, they take into account that there will be a certain amount of library copies circulated. They also take into account the fact that the more popular you are, the more copies the library will buy. They also take into account the fact that you also have ebook copies and regular copies, and the ebooks are going to cost less than regular books. So those are all different types of royalty fees. Once you add up to the amount that you are supposed to, that's when you will start getting paid beyond your advance. The one problem you can have with advances is if you get too high of an advance because they thought you were going to be like New York Times bestseller and then you don't New York Times bestsell, they might drop the contract with you and you might have to find someone else to do book 2, which does suck. So in some ways, don't be like scared if they give you a big advance. Be happy, but also be like willing to put yourself out there and market the book a little more so you can try to get some more of those sales for your royalty fees. With that being said, royalty fees are a lot lower because of the fact that you get that advance. And so as a result, royalty fees are generally below 10%, I would say, not usually above that. Whereas with hybrid publishing, it's usually more like 15% because of the fact that you are doing the majority of the work and they are only doing half the work. They are doing the cover designing, the editing, and then putting it on the shelves. But that is it. You have to do all the marketing. You have to do all the putting it out there. You have to actually go and write the book. They aren't going to keep you on deadlines, so any deadlines you have are yours. That makes it less work on them as a result. So you get a higher royalty fee. You don't have to deal with an advance with hybrid publishing because they don't give you an advance because of the fact that there's less of a concern because there's less of an investment in your book because you're the one investing. You're the one putting yourself forward. With independent publishing, it is 75+% depending on where you publish through. Which sounds amazing, but you also have no team. You are doing it entirely by yourself. So in some ways, it's good, but it's also bad because of the fact that you are struggling to potentially market. You have to find your own cover designer. Yes, you have to find your own cover designer. Do not design your cover by yourself unless you get professionally trained. Bad idea. Second, you also have to pay your own editor, again, unless you know a professionally trained editor who's just on standby willing to help you. You should pay for an editor. It's just better that way. You want your book to be stand out amongst the other independently published books because I would say at least 30% of independently published books are terrible because they don't get an editor, because they don't get their own cover designer. And so as a result of that, you want to stand out. You want to be part of the 70% that are actually really, really good, really high quality. And then lastly, also you have to market yourself. You have to go to farmers markets and be like, please buy my book. You have to go to online and be like, please buy my book. You have to go on Instagram and be like, guess what? I have a book. So it is a lot harder, but you also get way higher royalty fees. The other issue is you do have to buy the books in advance. If you were going to sell them at like farmers markets and things like that. So you are putting yourself out there monetarily wise. And you also want to sell them for more than they were worth individually. For example, if you bought each book for $7, you want to make sure you're selling it for at least 14, preferably more, but at least 14 so you can make the money back and then some. And also it depends on whether you're doing farmers markets. You're familiar with this because you're a mom. The farmers markets have a fee, believe it or not. You're not just showing up there and selling stuff. You are paying to be there. So if you don't make enough money, then you are losing money. So sometimes you have to make things a little higher priced purely because of the fact that you don't want to lose money. You want to be able to pay back the booth fee and make a little more. But yes. Any other questions regarding royalty fees or publishing before I move on to if you have a question?
I don't have one.
Cool. So Laura, comment or question before I move on to if you have a question. Royalty fees. That is the amount that you get paid per book. So for example, if a book is $20, traditional publishing dictates you get $2 for every 20 book published. And that's only after you've paid back your advance. So if you get an advance of $2,000, you're going to have to sell at least 1,000 copies of that book before you're going to start seeing any money. Second, hybrid fees. That's going to be 15%, but again, you're doing it mostly yourself and advertising wise. So as a result, those royalty fees are going to be a smidge higher, but not by much. So that would be more like $2 and something cents per book. Whereas with the 75% royalty fees that you see in most independently published sites, that's going to be more like out of that $20, you're going to be getting $15, give or take a little, per book. So it's lots of pros, lots of cons. Unfortunately, it's hard. But on the bright side, you are getting a lot more royalty fees. Even if you're investing a lot more money up front, you're getting a lot more money back once you actually sell things. So that's nice. Did that help? Okay. Did you have any questions about writing or publishing, or should I just skip to Solara? Nope. Okay. Solara, what were your questions?
What do you do when you don't know what your character looks like?
Fair enough.
Everything through.
Sorry, I can't help laughing because I've definitely had that happen. So I was like, relatable. Yes, so this is affectionately what I have named my as blob character syndrome, where your character looks like, well, nothing. I would say the first thing you start with is how they were raised. The reason why is because that's going to change more than likely the race that your characters are, especially if they're a fantasy race of some sort. For example, I know you've worked with a lot of other animal races and things like that. If you want, depending on how you want your animals to have grown up, that is going to change probably what animal type they are, because that's going to change how they grew up. For example, lion prides. Growing up in a lion pride would be drastically different than growing up as like a meerkat. That's gonna have a drastically different family dynamic. And then, like for example, burrowing owls. That's gonna be an entirely different family dynamic than barn owls getting raised that way. I'm sure you've read Guardians of Gahul. I would be shocked if you hadn't. But the whole thing with that is they show different cultures that have developed through these animal beings, right? So I would say if they're animals, go with how they were raised. If they're people, also go with how they were raised, because we are all drastically different depending on what culture we grew up in. And that culture is going to help really define us and who we are. We try not to let it do that, but it does. There's the whole nurture versus nature debate. It's both. It's always been both. People can argue whatever they want. It's both. And so as a result of that, you need to figure out what kind of household did they grow up in? What kind of cultures often does have this household? What kinds of things did they grow up believing in? What kinds of things did they like and dislike? Was it weird for them to dislike it? Um, Also, other things, for example, hair color. I actually am going to have a problem with this with my main character that I just recently was working on, because I was like, oh my gosh, I want her to be Native American because I think that would be so cool for all this different story building stuff and all this different stuff, because I took this whole class on various Native American culture stuff, and I was like, I'd love to have a Native American main character because my great grandma was Native American. That was so cool. And then I was like, but I also want her to be kind of a rebel, so I want her to have like dyed hair. Dyeing black hair is really hard. And I'm like, dang it, I screwed up.
I actually have this one character who had black hair, but then it's like, but then like she was just like, yeah, like then she like lied about like bleaching it, like slowly like bleaching and dyeing it, but she actually is pretending to be able to have a job.
Yeah, see, you can also have different cultural things, like needing to pretend to be a guy in order to get a job, or needing to pretend to be a girl to get a different kind of jobs. Those things can happen culturally. But yes, also, you got to take into account, like, do you want them to dye their hair regularly? If so, how are they dyeing their hair? Especially if they have dark colored hair. That's hard. Not impossible, but hard. um, and so, with that being said, there's a lot of different things that you need to come up with. For sure, it's hard to figure out what your character looks like, but I would say the biggest thing is what you would like to interact with the most as the writer, especially if they're the main character. Whatever would most intrigue you, whatever is most interesting to you, go with that, because you want to write about something you are most interested in. Was that helpful at all?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
The thing in my book here,
Mhm.
it's all people.
Yeah, I was gonna say, on occasion you do animals, on occasion you do people, so that's why I did both.
A thing I do with this the important characters here,
Mhm.
main characters and side characters,
Yeah.
is that they have some sort of like animal or a plant that kind of represents them.
Oh,
I don't
cool.
make it like obvious, just something that's a symbolism thing.
Yeah.
Like there's this girl who has like a fox who's like a spirit animal
Mhm.
thing. She has red hair, she has yellow eyes and all that. So that's what I kind of working on.
I was gonna say that would help, knowing what their spirit
This,
animal or spirit plant
spirit
is for
animal
sure.
thing is elk, so it's like
Oh yeah, yeah.
trying to
My
work through that,
I was gonna say
making
my main thing:
elk is-
brown hair, brown eyes, just because that's very common amongst deer of all kinds.
Yeah,
And then the other thing is whether they're a guy or a girl, yoked. Elk are buff, man. That's just my opinion.
I actually remember that I actually have one of my elf characters instead of using a horse, this elf like just keeps shoving.
It can always be
away
very
from
fun
her.
to have various other types of steeds.
Like one of my characters actually rides a giant wolf.
That's cool.
In
But
my
yeah,
book, there's the whole key of the thing. They don't ride horses, they ride elk, and then there's this whole system where
I
they
remember
tame
that one.
elk.
I remember that one. It's very good. All right, all right, I'm gonna move on to Emmett. There we go. I almost called you Will. I'm sorry. You mentioned Will earlier, and so my brain broke. I'm sorry. But anyway, so Evan, did you have any no questions? Okay, cool. Abby, did you have any other questions that you had about writing or publishing, or are you all good? Okay. Anyone else have any other writing or publishing questions? Solara, shoot.
How do you do a good dialogue? I have a hard time.
Dialogue.
Like
Yes.
advice that our YouTube research is like focus on how people talk to each other. And like, how do I?
How do you
focus
do
on
that
observe
without? Yes. How do you observe that? Two things. One creepy option, one less creepy option. Creepy option number one: sit silently in like a grocery store in like a corner and just listen. Sounds creepy, but it's really helpful. I promise. It's really helpful because people all talk drastically differently, and when you sit in the corner, like I don't know, buy an ice cream cone at Macy's when it's really, really busy, sit in the corner and listen to everyone else eat their ice cream. It's fascinating. Yes, like for sure. Or another thing, like for example, this was one of my favorite assignments that my creative writing teacher ever gave me. He said, find a different place than you normally sit if you're going to public school, that is. If you're homeschooled, I'm sorry. I don't know how to give you this. But if you're going to a public school, in this case, I guess go to a park. But in general, go to a place you don't normally eat lunch. Because most people don't bother you when you're eating lunch, right? So as a result, if you're eating lunch, you'll be ignored. Go to a place you normally don't eat lunch and eat lunch there. Then listen to the conversations around you while you are eating. Dude, I heard some of the weirdest crap. It was awesome. I learned so much about how people talk, especially stoners. Anyway, I accidentally sat next to a bunch of people that were definitely vaping, and I was like, we are in high school, sirs. But they were all talking about different flavors of vaping and different flavors of stuff, and I was like, guys, should I report this? Like, I don't know who you are, though. But yeah, so with that being said, obviously you can overhear some weird things, but at the same time it can also really help you because you hear people talking differently than you're used to. Because the one problem with your dialogues, it's probably going to sound like one of two things: you, your family, or your friends. That's three. I'm tired. So with that being said, you want to get outside of your normal. You want to experience a little bit more of strangers and odd people. And also, if you have parents in your book that act differently than your parents do, go outside, go to a park, and watch parents interact with their children. Again, fascinating. Sounds creepy. Fascinating.
Or you can watch your friend's parents.
Yes. Less creepy option number two. We're talking about dialogue, I promise. So, less creepy option number two. You can listen to a lot of TV dialogue, and after you've watched the TV show or the movie once, rewatch it multiple times, and you will learn more about how they talk. And it's actually really fascinating to hear how they're drastically different. And then try an exercise. This is one of my favorite exercises as well. Try to write a scene that you think could sound like them, but don't name them the same characters, and then hand it to someone else and say, does this, who has watched the TV series or watched the movie, and said, does this sound like so-and-so? And then if they read it and go, no, and here's why, then you can figure out what you're doing wrong with your dialogue, A. Or B, they'll be like, dude, it sounds just like so-and-so. And then you'll be like, I know, I'm so proud. But that's the less creepy option, is watch a TV show or a movie all the way through and then rewatch it until you think you've mastered their dialogue, and then practice working on their dialogue. A great example of this actually was someone independently published a novel recently that was based on a TV series that I absolutely love. And she was like, here's a scene that very much demonstrates that he has the same energy as this character. I was like, dude, it sounds just like him. I was like, yes. I immediately understood it. It sounded just like him. So those are my two tips for writing dialogue better, is mostly just observational. Unfortunately, there's not a lot I can teach you to just like say, here's how to do it. Mainly just because everyone's so drastically different. And so you got to figure out what the vibes of your character are, and then find someone who is either like them in real life or like them in a TV show, and observe just for a little while and see if you can adapt some of that. The other thing is obviously language. For example, I use a lot of larger words, mainly just because I grew up in a family of all readers and we loved to read, and so we liked using big fancy words. But not everyone does. I had a friend where I was growing up where she was just honest with me one day and was like, by the way, I don't mean this in like some sort of like weird sort of way, but I don't understand half of what you're saying most of the time. And I was like, oh, whoops. I did not realize that I'm just Hermione Granger over here. Like completely too fancy, and you don't understand what I'm saying. And so like with those
Like
kinds
a
of
light reading where she like
yes,
drops
exactly.
that
This
in.
is light. Exactly. I felt like that. Where she was like, I don't know what that word means, and I'm like, what? Yes, very much. So Laura.
It'd be interesting if somebody writes like a dialogue between people who, I don't know, speak two languages.
Yes.
Yeah,
Trying to understand each other. Yes.
Mix in the grammar, we mix in the language.
Yes.
It's just so weird, but everybody understands.
No, for sure. It's fascinating to try and have two people who are speaking, or even just like, for example, a great example of this. My friend, her dad went on an LDS mission to Ireland. He was told, it's Ireland. They speak English. Needless to say, he got there and went, nobody speaks real English here, guys. And he had to learn how Irish works because Irish speak faster. They speak with a harder lilt to their words. They have some different words, like, for example, the trunk of a car is a boot. And he was like, I don't know what you're saying about boots, man. Like, very confused. What's happening? It might be dead. Feel free to throw it away. But anyway, so yes, sometimes talking, even if they're talking the same language, if it's drastically different culturally, it can be really hard. Exactly. So it's important to try it, like you said, have fascinating dialogues like this and observe those kinds of things because it really can help you better develop your characters and your style. Okay, was that helpful? Yeah. Aside less creepy than it was helpful, hopefully. All right. Any other questions about writing or publishing before I turn off the video? Okay, cool. I'm gonna turn off the video now. We have one more month until the summer contest is due, end of July. Also, if you are writing anything for the Song Lyrics Sauce Poetry Contest, that is due in literally less than 10 days. So, with that being said, if you can, try to turn it in within the next couple days. Great. If you can't and you're going to wait till the dead last second, that's also fine. But make sure that you get it in before the end of June. And then meanwhile, like I said, you have until the end of July to finish your short story if you have one for the short story contest. All right, I'm going to turn off the video now. Feel free to disperse amongst yourselves, discuss whatever you want, brainstorm.
On, like,